This is a part 6 of my analysis of Star Trek, the original generation. In this video, I'm going to attempt to determine the rate of Federation expansion using evidence or information contained in Season 1 and try and explain why would it expand in this manner. When the Enterprise visited Earth in 1969, the human territory consisted of only one planet, obviously. In 2018, which was the year an interstellar drive was most likely developed, there were 2 human planets. Mars may still have been a colony, but was probably an independent planet by 2018 or, at the latest, 2020. It's unlikely that there were any planets outside of the, let's say, solar system at this particular point in time, although possibly some later version sleeper ships were sent to Alpha Centauri, but there's no evidence to suggest this has occurred. By 2264, the Federation consisted of 150 member planets or systems and 700 other planets or systems, which would include colonies, mining, farming, and research planets. The size of Federation space probably reached out 400 light years in all directions from Earth and has a volume of about 268 million cubic light years. Some of these planets would be alien. However, based on Season 1, 110 of these planets are probably human and only 40 are alien. If the same ratio applies to the other planets, then from 700 planets, 513 would be human and the rest alien. All this is quite, based on very flimsy evidence, but it's all that I've got to work with at the present time. Just a quick note, it's also possible the Federation had sent ships far beyond 400 light years from Earth, but it would not be considered Federation territory in terms of, colonies, established bases, etc. They would have been more exploration trips. This chart shows a linear increase. Now, this is probably unlikely to be accurate. It's more likely to be exponential. So, if we ignore the genetically altered supermen, there were no manned interstellar trips before 2018. In 2018, an interstellar drive was developed, and probably in a DY-500 spacecraft, and the manned exploration of the closest systems would have occurred. In 2055, United Earth probably had spacecraft which could travel at, let's say, 20 times the speed of light. So it's possible the initial DY-500 spacecraft only travelled at light speed, or perhaps a few times greater. This still would have allowed for an immediate exploration and colonisation of Alpha Centauri. It's possible sublight probes may have reached Alpha Centauri well before that, and we have evidence of a faster-than-light drive before 2018, which of course is what the Nomad probe is, but that's in Season 2. If the Earth was able to launch a manned mission to Saturn in 2009, it's not impossible an unmanned probe was sent to Alpha Centauri. If it could reach half light speed, it could get there in 10 years. As I've indicated, it's also highly likely that they had faster-than-light or an early version of it at this point, so they could have got there even earlier. But anyway, that's all in Season 2. However, we know Mars established some colonies. These may have been sent out after it became independent, possibly in 2020, although Colonel Green's war may have affected that. One question that we should answer is, why should the Earth be so eager to spread out and colonize other planets? The answer is a combination of a possible Vulcan first contact sometime between 1997 and 1999 and the state of the Earth in 2018. The Earth had suffered a limited nuclear war and the more major eugenics war, which also went nuclear. World War III would have affected Germany and the countries around it, and while we know from Hiroshima and Nagasaki a city affected by nuclear weapons does not make it uninhabitable, but the destruction of all its infrastructure would not make it a nice place to live. The conventional war would have created destruction similar to France in 1944, which would probably take 10 years to repair. Earth was not a particularly pleasant place. The biggest impact would have been the eugenics war. Khan was the only genetically altered Superman which would have had any sizable number of nuclear weapons. And when he was attacked, no doubt he used them. I suspect the superpowers would have responded in kind, which was the reason why 600 million people died. Finally, even though the death toll from war would be very high, the relentless increase in population would have been much higher. A population of 6 billion people in a damaged 2018 Earth would have been a very different place to the world we live in now. While there are more people alive in our timeline, our ability to feed them would be much greater than in a war-damaged Earth. Earth in 2018 was not a nice place to live, so there'd be no lack of colonists. The knowledge that there were aliens would give Earth a major reason to get out and grow, otherwise they would be invaded and taken over by another hostile alien race, which almost certainly would have occurred if the Klingons and Romulans got to Earth before Earth grew in power and strength. The humans on Earth would not be the politically correct tree huggers that exist in the developed world in our timeline. They would be a very suspicious and cynical people which are living at a much lower living standard in a war-damaged and poisoned world. This combination of reasons drive the humans to expand and what to us would seem a frantic rate. I'm assuming the expansion of humans was conducted in a linear manner in terms of distance from Earth only. This would represent an exponential expansion in terms of planets. I will be dealing in planets rather than systems because it's easier, and it's a bit unclear when a planet or a system is mentioned in the source material. Thus, in Sol there were 2 planets, Earth and Mars. We know there is an Alpha 3, which may imply there are 3 habitable planets in the Alpha Centauri system. This is a guess which could easily be wrong, but 3 habitable planets in a binary system is very possible. Thus, if the United Earth territory spans 5 light years in all directions from Earth, its volume would be 523 cubic light years and would contain 3 planets. This is a very high density and is explained by the proximity of another yellow sun, or 2 yellow suns, so close to Sol. If we go out to 25 light years, there are only 1 or 2 suitable large suns, and it's possible none have habitable planets. If Alpha Centauri has 3 planets, plus the 2 in Sol, we would expect United Earth territory to total 1.5 million cubic light years and span 75 light years in all directions from Earth around about 2060. If Earth territory spans 150 light years in all directions from Earth, the volume would be 13 million cubic light years, with 45 habitable planets. Of these planets, we would expect 5 to be member planets of United Earth, with the remainder colonies, mining planets, and so on. When United Earth fought the Romulan Star Empire, it probably consisted of 106 planets, of which 18 were human member planets with some military potential. The rest were colony, mining planets, and so on, and possessed almost no military potential. Using another wild guess, we could assume the Federation space doubled to 400 light years from Earth in all directions between 2160 and 2260, which gives us a volume of 268 million cubic light years containing 850 planets, of which 150 were member planets. Part of the rapid expansion would be due to alien member planets joining, of which there are probably 40. It's highly likely most of the member planets are all within 200 light years of Earth, with the outer 200 light years containing colonies, mining planets, and so on. The alien planets may reside in this area as well, but so far only the Vulcans have equivalent technology to Earth. There are probably a few more in the mix, with a minimum of 3 more being likely. Vulcan must have some colony planets, but as they do not seem to be an expansionary race, these would be probably minimal. Using all these assumptions, this is a possible human rate of expansion from 2030 to 2260. In 2030, we only have 1 major planet, which is Earth. Mars and a colony planet in Alpha Centauri, which we'll call Alpha 3, represents the other 2 planets. In 2060, another colony is established, and by 2085, the colony of Alpha Centauri is developed to the point where it be considered a major planet. A major planet would probably have some autonomy and be able to contribute to the defence of the United Earth, although possibly not a great deal. In 2160, the Earth area consisted of 18 major planets, but possibly only 3 could contribute to the offensive capability of the United Earth. These are Earth, Mars, and Alpha 3. Against these 3 planets, we have the 3 named major planets of the Romulan Star Empire. A quick note about area. While in 2030 all the named planets are within 5 light years of Earth, the area shown is 60 light years. This would represent bases on more distant planets which cannot be considered as anything which contributes to the economic well-being of the human economy. I'm guessing military bases or exploration missions. If our interstellar drive can manage 5 times the speed of light, 60 light years takes 12 years to travel. Let's try and identify how quickly planets developed. The only reference we have of how quickly a planet develops is Denver, mentioned in Operation Annihilate. In this example, the colony planet took 100 years to reach a population of 1 million, but this was probably not yet considered a full member planet. We know that colony planets start as agricultural planets, which start with a population of 150 colonists. Once they develop a reasonable level of agriculture, the rest of the colonists arrive. We aren't certain how many colonists arrived, but we know TOS 4 had a population of 8,000 when a famine occurred. At a population growth rate of 3%, this is not sufficient to achieve 1 million within 100 years, so the number of colonists which are required must be closer to 60,000. These planets are very far from Earth. The closer planets would grow more rapidly, but this is a reasonable guideline. A planet which is colonized takes 100 years to achieve the population required to become a major planet and member of the United Earth or Federation Parliament. The planets closer to Earth would achieve this much quicker. This means that all the other planets in 2060 become major member planets of the Federation by 2260, with the addition of some alien planets as well. As you can see by this video, there's no way that we can definitively identify the actual true rate of expansion of the Federation or United Earth Empire or whatever. The purpose of doing this, however, is to try and work out the sizes of the various, nations when they fought wars in the past. So, for example, the key thing is how big was the United Earth Empire when it fought the Romulans? As far as I can work out, we're only talking about 3 major planets and a whole bunch of quite minor planets which don't contribute much at all. The other interesting thing is the outer half of probably both the Federation and the Romulans consisted of basically non-populated planets. Research establishments, etc., with a couple of hundred people, which could explain why both sides never actually saw each other. Because as the Earth Empire advanced, or presumably as the Romulans advanced at the early stage of the war, as they came to a planet, that planet could be completely evacuated. And vice versa, when the United Earth came back and started taking Romulan Star Empire territory, those planets were evacuated. That could explain why no one ever actually saw each other on the planet. Anyway, a lot of conjecture here, and it's all very interesting, but all I can say is that the Federation certainly did rapidly grow. And it was a good thing it did, because if it didn't, it would have been wiped out by the Romulans and Klingons, according to at least the Star Trek canon. Live long and prosper, Trekkie fans. The episode scripts can be found on the URL shown and also in the description.